Metal Gear is an MSX classic and an NES dud. It's Amigos, episode 324. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about Metal Gear.
All right.
But before we get into Metal Gear, Aaron, we are streaming on a very special evening tonight. We are streaming on Twitch on Wednesday night in support of Extra Life. Today is the main day where most people that do Extra Life streams get it going. Of course, our big event, Amigathon, took place last July, but we realized there might be some people out there that were waiting for the official Extra Life Day of Gaming to donate. So if at any point during our stream this evening you'd like to toss some money over to the Children's Miracle Network hospitals through Extra Life, just check out our link, bit.ly/Amigathon 2021. It's right there. It'll be right down there at the bottom of the screen throughout the course of the show. And in lieu of the Patreon song this evening, Aaron, I'll be reading all of the donations that came in over the course of the show at the end of the show. So it's a win-win. Sick kids get help, and you don't have to listen to a Patreon song this week.
Right there. That's worth donating for, my friend.
All right, Aaron. Now, we should probably kick things off before we get into Metal Gear by giving everybody a rundown of what's been going on in the wide world of Amiga this week.
All right.
What is it, Aaron? What's the news?
Amiga News.
All right, Aaron, we're going to kick things off with a video from the one, the only 10-minute Amiga Retrocast. That's right, Doug. He has gone and he has come back. This is the Ami West 2021 trip report.
You've been waiting to talk about this one, haven't you, Bode?
I've been chomping at the bit to talk about this. I'm really glad that Doug took this trip. He drives something like 17 to 19 hours to get to this thing. This is not close to where he lives in Arizona. And he gives you a really nice rundown of the event. You kind of get a feel of what it must be like to be hanging out at the event space with the crowd over there. And, I've got to say, after watching this event, it was what I thought it would be. I have never been to an American Amiga event before.
Right.
I've only been to Amiga Ireland. I've been there a couple times. And it's a different sort of vibe. You get a different sort of vibe. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I will say this, the American event, definitely more subdued. There's less of a sort of a party atmosphere. I think that's probably due to I saw there was a distinct lack of boozery at Ami West, which definitely probably had an effect on the proceedings. But it also seemed to be a much bigger place. This looked to be about the size of the Amiga Ireland event from 2020 versus 2019, a little bit more spread out. The crowd a little bit older, a little bit grayer. I think we've talked about before, the average age of your Amiga user in the US or in Europe and the UK, probably about 10 years younger than the average Amiga user in the States. And you definitely see that here. There's definitely some grayer heads, I would say. Not nearly as much of a gaming presence here. There was, I think, one game competition where they're talking about a pinball game. But other than that, it's all hardware all the time, baby. So if you're a hardware fanatic and you love looking at accelerator cards and cracking machines open and doing stuff like that, it seems like Ami West would be the place for you. It was interesting to see the difference. Now, Aaron, I know that you haven't been to either of these in person, but you have seen the videos from both events. What were your thoughts?
Well, I would agree. This one, the Ami West, definitely looks more like a more calmer affair and from what you told me about the shenanigans up in Ireland, that did not seem calm. That's for sure. It's a different. Now, I will say this: this Ami West versus your trip. It's amazing that you got over to Ireland right before the pandemic hit, if you'll recall. And so this is like one of the first post-pandemic events, right? And one thing we know for certain is that the numbers were affected just on the basis of the lack of people that were able to come in from Canada. You couldn't have any Europeans come in. That apparently some do, sort of like you did when you went there.
Right.
So I'm sure that played a factor in it. When you went to Ireland, that there was a hardware boom, but not like now, where it's just like there's crap coming out every day, it seems like, for the Amiga and the hardware front. And so maybe that plays a little part in it. I don't know how many merch sellers there were when you were up in Ireland, but it looked like there was a lot of people that were sponsoring this event. So
yeah, and I think that is another big thing that's different, is that the Amiga Ireland, I think they almost go out of their way to not really attract people selling crap. It's definitely more of a let's get together, have a good time, have a few drinks, and play some games, versus the sort of like trade show like atmosphere of something like this.
Yeah, I think with the boom in hardware, I think it's just there's a lot of people that want to show off some awesome stuff. I mean, Doug took like 37 Amigas there with him, so he took a ton of stuff. You got guys selling stuff, you got guys making stuff and working on stuff here. So this seemed like it was a little more tech based in terms of like that sort of thing. But again, not being in Ireland, it's just me guessing. But all that said, this looked like it would be interesting. I'm sure some wackery went down in the after parties.
Maybe at the banquet. That's where all the wackery was.
Why do you think, Bo, that the European crowd is so much the average age is so much younger? Is it because the Amiga hung on there longer?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. The Amiga hung on there longer. The price of PCs was just so much more expensive over in Europe than it was in the States. You talk to countless people and they tell you that's exactly the reason, is that people just didn't go out and buy PCs because they were too expensive. And so you had kids and obviously the consoles were not nearly as much of a factor in Europe as they were here. So you had kids that were my age that were all about consoles versus kids that, were my age in Europe. They, the NES and stuff like that wasn't really a part of their life by and large. They were all lusting after Amigas, and that's what it all comes down to.
I think it's something else that Doug mentioned. I saw a lot of people were talking about this, where the proliferation of Raspberry Pis and Misters that were in the mix. This is something I remember in your video from Ireland, as I recall, someone there having a Raspberry Pi near Amiga was like a real novelty. And here there were a bunch of people that had special setups like that. So that's something that's really matured in the couple years since you were over there, or the year and 8 months, or however long it's been. The Mister was not. I mean, the Mister was out, but it wasn't really the force that it is now. You did see some Raspberry Pis, but by and large, it was 99% all original hardware. And again, it just has to do with people. Well, and also, the majority of the people that were coming to this, I don't know. It's hard to say, what was the average distance traveled by, people at AMI West versus in Ireland, but the distances were just so protracted. I mean, 17-hour drive from Ireland, you'd be in like Moscow or something like that. So the distance is much less protracted there. Would you want to speculate, Boat, on what the Ireland show drew in terms of how many people you figure were there? We talking 100, hundreds? Where do you put it? Less than 100?
I wouldn't say hundreds. I would say the second year, I would say, I don't know, people in chat can back me up. I'd say maybe between 100 and 200 the second year. And the first year, well, see, they cap it at a certain number of tickets too.
Yeah,
which is different. But and then I think I'd say between 50 and 100 on the first year. The first year was a lot smaller, but again, because they capped the tickets because they had such a small space.
Right. I'm pretty sure I heard that this drew a little over 50 people, give or take, and so that's going to be part of it too. You're not going to you get that big room, so it's it looks a little more sparse than you would expect with with the numbers were there. And again, I think we can go back to the fact that we just had they're just coming. This sort of thing's just coming back after what's been a real bad couple years. So I know the people that run this were very happy, and you should be with the turnout and the way it went down. And I think you're going to see this get back. I think people are going to get back into these things in a big way. I know we are really looking forward to getting out there. And so I suspect that in the next few years, these things are going to grow exponentially, especially since the Amiga's become a lot more accessible to your average guy. Even if you don't have a bunch of money, you can whack a few bucks out and have something cooking pretty easy these days on the Amiga. It's not like it was when we first started fiddling with it back in the day, but we were just struggling. I mean, you could really get in there and go. So I think the accessibility is going to go a long way. Plus, I think you're seeing more Americans get into it than back in the day. I think there's a little more presence of it. So.
It's so much easier with the things like the Pi Amiga, the Mister, to just have these turnkey emulation solutions that are still you're carrying a piece of hardware with you. People like having a box that does a certain thing, and I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. So this looked great. I'm glad Doug shot this because I watched some of the live stream. But a lot of the live stream was sort of idle when I was there. So they just said like, we'll be back. And so I felt like I wasn't quite in the mix like I was in Ireland. So it was nice to have Doug go around with the camera and catch this footage.
I think that's another thing too, is that I don't know if they had somebody whose job it was. Like when I went over to Ireland, that was my main goal, was to bring people into the show that couldn't be there. And I don't know if they had somebody set aside that was their job. And so, if we ever get Boat Fest cooking, Aaron, that's going to be something that we need to think about, because we want to make sure that anybody in our international Amigos community that can't make it, we want to put them right in the heart of the action.
Boat Fest is going to pretty much be all on you, Boat, because I'll be having a little bit of the bubbly that weekend.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, I'm just telling you. Don't expect me to do anything. There you go, Boat.
All right. Well, we move on down the line. Now, we've got a new work in progress video from the, this is, of course, the year of the Amiga port, the arcade port to the Amiga. This is Jackal, Aaron. Jackal is a game that I never played in the arcades, but I played on the old NES. And this Amiga version is really coming along well, don't you think?
Yeah, I love Jackal. I used to play it on the NES and in the arcade. You get your two Jeeps out there, and you run around. It's sort of like a rolling commando or something. Is the best way to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's fun to play multiplayer on it. It's just a lot of fun. The control mechanisms, it's sort of Robotron-esque in a way, and it's just it's a cool game. And this looks great. I didn't see this coming either, Boat. So I'm very excited about this. This just popped up in the last few weeks, and of course, Saberman was there to get some footage of this thing. So it should be fun. I don't know if there's an ETA on this, but it looks like it's well in. You can see that by the what you're looking at on the screen if you're watching at home. They've got it going. They've got the prisoner aspect of it. Everything's moving around. It looks good. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and this is actually playable in its current state as well. You can head over to nisogames.itch.io. You can find the link to this YouTube video on the news link up there in the upper right corner of the screen. Yeah. And you can download and try out this work in progress demo for yourself.
Yeah, it looks real good, though. I was quite pleased. I mentioned this last week when me and Brent were doing the new 16-bit episode of ARG. When you look at the new stuff coming out, and it was a barren desert for a long time with the Amiga, and we complained a lot, Bode, despite our inability to change things because we're too dumb. But smarter people than us heard the clarion call, Bode, and they have went out and they're cranking up the goodness on the Amiga, and of course we're going to be talking about some today. But it's very exciting, Bode. It's a great year for the Amiga homebrew scene. I can't wait.
Absolutely. All right, Aaron, let's move on. Now, this is a video from our good friend, Dan Wood, and he has put together a retrospective on deluxe paint on the Amiga. Now, if you recall, one of our earliest episodes, we interviewed a guy named Paul Shaw to talk about deluxe paint, because guess what? We don't know crap about deluxe paint, Aaron. That's not our bag.
Well, we do know Dan. Dan is great. Retro Hour, him and Ravi have been doing it for a while. Dan always does great stuff, Bode. And when I saw this pop up, I was like, this looks like a lot of fun. It's a good idea, too, because, listen, how many times have we mentioned D-Paint on this show? Like every show, almost, it seems like. And it goes back, when you watch this, it triggers a lot of stuff, because a lot of the stuff in D-Paint, you saw the same images in magazines and ads, and you saw them over and over. And so when you see this stuff, it's stuff you remember Like, I remember when I was just getting into the Amiga, seeing these little demos and seeing these little things that came with D-Paint. It's a trip down memory lane. Of course, Dan, like I said, is real good at putting this sort of thing together, as he proved when we did Amigathon, and he helped us out by sending in some footage. So if you want to step back and have a look at D-Paint on the Amiga, this you could do no better than Dan on the D-Paint on the Amiga, a retrospective video. I would definitely check this out, everybody.
And finally, Aaron, this is a video. I have not seen this one yet. This comes to us from a YouTuber called Retro Gamer Nation.
This guy's a big
tell us
deal.
about this one, man.
Yeah. So this is just, we were talking about all the stuff that got released. Retro Gamer Nation's he's a real well respected YouTuber, and he just put together a little compilation of some of the stuff that has came out this year, including Shadows of Surgoth, which you'll recall that we talked about that one a while back. And boy, it looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
The upcoming Devil's Temple, which we also talked about a couple shows ago. This looks awesome, and I believe it's going to be shipping I think it's due to come out February of 22, so just in a few months. And this is looking real sharp, Bo. Look at that. That looks great.
Yeah.
But this is just RGN just going over some of the stuff that's been released this year, or stuff that's coming out in the near future on the Amiga. He doesn't always do Amiga. He does C64. He does some console stuff. But I like his stuff, and I thought this might be enjoyable for someone who's kind of been out of the loop to kind of go back and have a look at some of this stuff and see what you can go out and pick up or get for free. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Like, so it's been a good year, and it's fixing to be a great year on the Amiga. And
Absolutely.
This is an excellent way to kind of review and also kind of get into RGN stuff. He does a lot of good stuff. So if you get a chance, check it out. It's the Commodore Amiga Roundup, and the channel is called Retro Gamer Nation.
Cool. All right, Aaron, it's time to talk about our favorite place to get all of our accessories and repairs done for our Commodore computers. Let's talk about RetroRewind.ca, shall we?
Yes, sir. Well, our good buddy Frank runs Retro Rewind up in Canada. If you're in North America and you're looking for any sort of action on your Commodore machine, you need look no further than RetroRewind.ca. RetroRewind.ca has a great selection of parts, replacement parts, and gizmos and gadgets that you can use that are modern for your Commodore machines and your Amiga, including stuff like the Kung Fu Flash. Frank also offers a recapping service that's quite nice, very reasonably priced boat, and also available if you want to do it yourself. You can get your cap kits and whatnot. So it's all there. All you need to do is go over to RetroRewind.ca. And if you do go there and purchase something, tell them what they can do with a special code, Boatster.
Listen, man, no matter what you buy from Frank and the team, put in that promo code Amigos10 at checkout, and boom, you're going to save 10% off your order. That's no small change, man. You load up your cart with your Kung Fu Flash, a couple recap kits, maybe one of them transit cards for your 1541.
You love those.
Pop in that promo code, and away you go.
Yeah, man. And Frank gets it done quick. And trust me when I tell you, this isn't some guy that thought it'd be cool to start a store. This guy's got decades and decades of highly publicized technical prowess. He's been on
Absolutely.
TV. He's a big deal. And he will take care of your machine like it's a precious little baby. That's RetroRewind.ca, Bode. We fully endorse the Frankster. He's a good guy.
We do. All right, Aaron, we put this off long enough. Let's talk Metal Gear.
Oh man, Bode, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been looking forward to this one, my friend, because Metal Gear is a game that I actually had played before. At least I thought I had. Back in the day when the Brent used to have his NES, and so I remember thinking, hey, this is kind of a neat game back in 1988 or whenever I played this originally. And so when I heard they were making an Amiga port, which is not necessarily true, I'll get into that, I was excited to see if it was something that still held up with me, because I only had a vague recollection of it. Of course, everyone knows the Metal Gear franchise has went on to huge, enormous success, Boat. So this was very exciting. Now, obviously we're talking about what you can only describe as a reverse engineered and modified Metal Gear, which just came out around May this year. And it was done by the legendary DJ, like musical master Hoffman, of all people.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in and put some special touches in it. We'll get to that in a moment, Boat. I want to talk about the game, the game itself, Metal Gear. And I asked you this before the show, and you sort of alluded to the fact that you had. Is this a game that you played on your NES back in the day? You're a big NES guy, and surely you played this.
I probably put at least 100 hours into Metal Gear when I was a kid. I played the heck out of this game. It was when I first got my Nintendo, I got a stack of games. My mom had gone to a yard sale, and this is back when people just used to put out Nintendo games, like $5 a piece or something like that. And she got a big stack of them. And I remember this was one of the games along with Jackal. I had this, Jackal and Metroid were the games that I got along with Super Mario Brothers.
That's a good lineup right there.
Yeah, it was a really good lineup. And so I played this in fact, one of the memories, whenever there's a 2-hour delay for school, because being a teacher, I still get those. I think back to the time when I was in elementary school. And we were just getting ready to get into the car, and then all of a sudden it came on the TV, Putnam County Schools 2-hour delay, and I was like, yes, I'm going to go play some more Metal Gear. That was the kind of grip that this game had a hold on me. Absolutely.
So you were a big fan, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
now, that's interesting. Now, I learned a lot about Metal Gear this week. I'm going to share my knowledge, and I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but it was news to me, and I thought it was interesting, Boat. So. Of course, the Metal Gear we all know and love in the States was Metal Gear on the NES. That's where I played it. I had no idea, Boat, that this had also gotten released on the C64 or for DOS, among other places. And certainly I didn't know it had been released originally on the MSX too. I had no idea about that. The fact that this was on the C64, I found baffling. I had no idea that had been, and I went and looked at it, pretty neat. But one thing
that's news to me. Was that released contemporaneously with the NES version?
Absolutely.
Wow,
in fact,
interesting.
An Amiga version had been announced, but it never came to fruition. So presumably they were going to release along the whole slew of the home systems. Now, one thing I learned aside from that is, of course, I played the NES version. This is just like you. Now, of course, as I've gotten into this hobby more, you hear about things, and I'd heard that this was originally done on the MSX2, which was the very popular Japanese computer system, and that was in bed with Microsoft and the whole 9 yards, which you don't hear a lot about in the States, but in parts of Europe and in Japan, it was a much bigger deal. The MSX is a pretty good rep, and little did I know that the MSX2, which got the original version of Metal Gear, also basically got I'm not going to say it's an entirely different game, but there are vast differences in the two. And having looked at both of the games, it's not like they're not obvious. Did you know that the Nintendo version, I know you know that now, but were you aware of this back in the day, that you were playing a different version than the original vision of this game?
Oh, of course not. Yeah. I had no idea. It's not like Nintendo Power was making that fact known now, when I read the review.
Did you know? I mean, but this time around, you surely knew.
Oh, absolutely. I've known for a long, long time. I mean, since I sort of got involved with the retro gaming community in the late 90s, I became aware that this Metal Gear was not the sanctioned Metal Gear. Yeah. In fact, the creator of Metal Gear, Hideo Kojima, basically is he doesn't consider the NES Metal Gear to be a game in the Metal Gear series at all. Yeah. He's totally washed it. And it makes sense, as I'm sure you're going to get into.
Well, it's funny. I will. Why not do it now? Because, of course, he was a big man. He's got a big name, of course, now. But when this game came out, he hadn't even been with Konami for very long, and he took the Metal Gear series over from another guy. And they were looking for...
Whoa.
Yeah, he took Metal Gear was not his baby originally. He actually, not the series, but the original game, he took over from someone else.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, well, I heard a different story.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the story that I heard.
Okay, go ahead.
So Kojima was hired by Konami to code a game that was like Commando, because Commando was the new hotness in the arcades,
Yes.
and they needed, Kojima, he wanted to work for Konami's arcade division, but they didn't put him in the arcade division. They put him in the MSX division, their home division. And because a game like Commando couldn't really be done well on the MSX because of its lack of scrolling capabilities, he devised a system to have a game where you are a commando, you're running around and doing stuff, but instead of it being a run and gun game, it would be a game more like Castle Wolfenstein, where it was more of a stealth-like game.
Yes.
Okay. And so he designed this game, and he designed the story. He came up with the story of a commando that is trying to destroy a nuclear-armed mech called Metal Gear. If he did not invent Metal Gear, that's news to me and news to lots of people.
Yeah, well, everything you said is exactly what I read. But what I had read is this game had actually began preliminary development when they brought him in. Now, was the name or the plot or anything settled? Who knows how far along it had went. But when he came in, this had been planned to be just like you said, like a Commando sort of game. It's funny, from what I read, and they quoted him from a magazine where he said that when you trip an alarm in this, in his mind, he envisioned this to be like a Pac-Man, where you're Pac-Man and the ghosts are the soldiers coming to get you through a maze, which is interesting.
Well, I've got some more information about that. So in its original form, he did not envision this game to have much of a combat element at all, if any. He wanted this to be a pure stealth experience. But the top brass at Konami, they were having none of it. A game where you play as a commando and you don't engage with an opponent, nobody's going to want that. And so he devised this alert system where you do spend a big part of the game sneaking around, but if you do happen to detect the attention of the guards, then, like you said, it goes into Pac-Man mode, where they suddenly start to swarm you. And this is this is obviously Metal Gear's calling card. This whole alert system is something that was, it had never been done before to this extent, where, you hear a sound, the music changes, all of the enemy patterns change. Very, very innovative for the time, and still, innovative today as they continue to kind of refine it in all of the sequels and things.
I'm going to agree with Konami on this, by the way. I think having a game where there's absolutely no combat would be a mistake. What they ended up doing, I think they hit the sweet spot, because combat is important in this game, but you can't. It's not the kind of game where you just go in guns blazing. You won't get past the third screen. That's not the way you play it, and I think that's what makes it fun. Now, some people are probably wondering, hey, why are these two dipsticks going on and on about the MSX version of this and the history of it? Because it's all sort of plays into ultimately what got released on the Amiga and what didn't. Because when this game came to the NES, there were wholesale changes made to it. Now, I looked into this a little bit. I've read a couple of news articles, and also on the wiki they talk about it a little bit. And basically, for what it boils down, you tell me this meshes with what you heard, Boat. So this got ported by a whole different section of Konami that he didn't have any sway with, basically. And so they told them, they said, listen, when you move this over to NES, make it different as you can. And they gave them 3 months to do it. And they gave them a list of what they wanted stuff to be different. Now, that's all I said. I don't know why they wanted that. I have no idea what the reasoning was. But they gave these guys a minimal amount of time. And so what you ended up getting on the NES is it's sort of a different game. It's not, but it is. The stuff in the original game on the MSX2 is out of sequence. Sometimes it's not there. They add a lot more outdoor stuff. The opening's completely different. They effectively get rid of the Metal Gear because they couldn't actually get that to work. So they've got a big computer. That's what I read, which is weird. Yeah. And so what got ported to all the home systems in America, the DOS version, the NES version, the C64 version, they were all ports of the NES version of this game. What the Amiga port would have been a port of the NES version. What Hoffman did, to his credit, someone dumped the MSX2 cartridge. All right, I listened to Hoffman talk about this, and so they were able to basically reverse engineer the cartridge and use some of that to port this game over. Okay, so it's not emulation, and it's not a straight up. It's not like they ported it
It's not
per
a
se,
transcode.
right? And so what the result of this is that they have a game here, and because I actually loaded up the MSX2 and tried this, and I mean they're practically identical. Did you try this on the MSX2, or have you ever played this on there?
You know, I didn't think to fire it up, even though it's probably on the Mister.
Yeah, it is,
isn't it?
and it's that they play. I mean, they did a great job. Okay, so we'll go there. Hoffman.
Oh, you know what? I take it back. I did. I played this on CoinOps.
Yeah.
The only thing I felt like, at least, I felt the Amiga version ran just a little bit slower. I felt that your character movement was a little bit slower on the Amiga versus the MSX, but graphically, almost identical. Of course, all the music is different because Hoffman's calling card is music. But I mean, you would not know it unless you played them back to back, or you were some sort of Metal Gear fiend.
Now, I will say this, Bode, and you may have known this, and maybe even changed it, but this supports 50 and 60 hertz. So you could have actually, chances are, if you're like me, you've got your Mister set on, or your CoinOps could have been playing the PAL version on NTS machine, or vice versa.
Oh, okay.
Because Hoffman built, amongst the things Hoffman did that were brilliant, you could actually go back to the original effects in this. You could also change, this has full translations of the original European translation, the new translation, a Spanish translation. They had a Spanish version of this in the game. So he went through and put a lot of different elements in the game that you could get the full experience from the game, which I appreciate that. Now, with all that said, that's the basis of the game. This is how the game got here. Now, how is this game? Okay, we both played the NES game a lot, and I will say, well, that's not true. I played it some. You probably played a lot more than me, but I had played it, and I played it a little bit this week. I think the MSX version of this is way better. All right, then.
Okay, well, let's talk about. We haven't actually talked about what the game is.
Okay, go ahead.
And what you do in the game. So let's do that a little bit first. So, this game is a third-person, top-down, pseudo isometric. Not really isometric. It's a 3D perspective where you're moving through environments that look like they have raised walls and things like that. You play as Solid Snake, and your job is to infiltrate a compound and rescue hostages, including the former hotshot Special Forces agent Gray Fox, and take out Metal Gear. Metal Gear is a mech, a nuclear-armed mech, one of those big Japanese robot mechs. Okay, and so to aid you in your journey, you have communications abilities. So one of the innovative things about this game is that at certain points you'll get a little you'll hear a sound like a phone ringing, and you'll see a thing that says call pop up in the bottom of the screen. You hit the button, and the screen goes away, and you see a comm screen with your photo on one side and the photo of the person you're talking to on the other, and it simulates you getting a call on a radio. You think about like a Vietnam War style radio where you're tuning in, and you actually have to tune to certain frequencies to hear messages. It's a really, really neat effect. And so you get your sort of mission briefings as you move through the story. One of the things that Kojima is famous for is his cinematic approach to game stories. And so, in this game, the story is fed to you through these communications. In future games, that is expanded upon greatly, and you have more cinematic cutscenes and stuff like that. But in this game, of course, being his first game, it's pretty stripped back. But it's still an innovative way to tell a story as you're experiencing it.
Yeah.
So as Solid Snake, you move through this enemy fortress, and you have to basically rescue hostages. That's what you do the majority of the game. But you move through and you find different items. There's a whole range of weapons. There are pistols and rocket launchers. There's a silencer you can put on your pistol that makes you more stealthy, so you can shoot guys without alerting everybody else in the room. There's the infamous cardboard box that you can hide in
Yes.
and scoot around in plain sight. And you also have things like a gas mask that you have to don in certain places. And so you have two slots, basically. You have your weapons slot or your item slot, and then you also have your key card slot. You have to collect key cards. And so you're basically, maneuvering your way through this maze-like fortress, trying to find and destroy Metal Gear. And as you said, in one of the major disappointments of many disappointments of the NES version is that when you reach the end of the NES version, you don't actually see Metal Gear. He's not in the game. You see a big supercomputer. Super lame.
They said that was a hardware limitation, if you can believe that.
When you play the NES version and you go back to the MSX version, the MSX2 was superior to the NES, and so it does not look as good. The graphical fidelity is not as great.
Yeah.
However, when you watch the pivotal Metal Gear fight, I don't think Metal Gear actually moves around.
Doesn't.
It's like
it doesn't move a bit. That's why I find it hard to believe that they couldn't simulate Metal Gear on the NES.
I call shenanigans
I do.
on that.
When I read that, I'm like, are you kidding me? Because it's not like he's dancing around shooting. He doesn't do anything.
yeah. So that's basically the game in a nutshell. Now, Aaron, do you like this style of game? Do you find this sort of game appealing?
Well, this game, when you tell me, when I think NES like action adventure game, this is the game that comes to my mind because it's got all the earmarks of a game that I remember when Brent was here. Now, you're more of an NES guy than I am, but I mean, this is the kind of game that I remember Brent playing a lot. This sort of thing, where you go on this long adventure. It's complicated. It's hard. Like it's real confusing sometimes. I would say this is probably a third more confusing than the NES version, just because both are difficult. I think the NES version, parts of it hold your hand, especially at the beginning, a lot more than this one.
I totally
really
disagree.
because
I could not disagree
like right
more.
At the beginning of the NES game, there's sort of only one way you can go. At the very beginning.
Well, yeah, but there's sort of only one way you can go, right into the hands of the enemy, where you'll die repeatedly.
That's both versions. But
No, it's not both versions. I was able to get and rescue two hostages in this game before I died the first time.
Okay, but let me tell you.
In Metal Gear for the NES, you cannot get to the compound without dying. It's a trial by death thing because you have to negotiate your way through the woods, and there's a set path that you have to take, or else you'll just be shot and be killed.
The difference is you can go. I got all the way to the first hostage on the Amiga Metal Gear.
Right, and then, the MSX version.
And then I got to the room with the gas, and I didn't know there was a route to get the gas mask. I had no idea.
Well, yeah, but that's the game.
Right, but
that's
I mean, on the NES version, there's no, at the beginning at least, there are no other routes. You will go and get in the truck, and it takes you right there, and at least, even if it's harder, you know where you're going, versus this one, there's a lot more exploration. Don't get me wrong. It's doable, but I mean, I thought the NES one was a little bit simpler at the beginning in terms of getting you there.
The NES game starts in a horrible way. You parachute in, which is cool. I think that's the whole reason why they wanted you to do that. But starting you off in the woods and making you go through 7 or 8 screens before you even get to the place where you're supposed to start the game, that's no good. That's an unnecessary introductory sequence. Versus the MSX version and the Amiga version, you start out swimming outside the compound. You swim up through because every good compound needs a moat. Yeah. I mean, that's just how it is. And so you swim up, and then you're in the game, and then boom, you immediately understand this is a stealth game. You could play for years on the NES version and not realize that it's a stealth game because it gives you no opportunities for stealth. It gives you the opportunity to die a whole bunch until you figure out the exact right way to walk, but that's it.
It is strange that they made that change because I will admit, the MSX version and the Amiga version, they throw you right into the action. There's no doubt about that. The other things that make me think this is an NES game, or especially a Japanese one, is just it's wacky. If you actually follow the story, it's a goofy story with a lot of dangling carrots, a lot of weird plot elements to it that don't make a lick of sense. Especially the ending of this game doesn't make a lick of sense. And up to the point where you get to the end, you think, at least I did. I thought I didn't get to the end, by the way, but I did end up watching the whole thing. I got fairly well into it. But you think that your contact is a complete idiot. like they'll radio you after you're already in a horrible situation to be like, oh, by the way, there's a horrible situation up ahead. You're like, I'm in it. It happens over and over and over in this game. And at the end, it makes sense. But at the beginning, you just think this is total. Like I was in that gas room.
But here's
the
thing,
phone
man.
kept ringing. I'm like, who can call me now? And he's like, be careful. There's gas. It's like, I'm in it.
Right. But this game came out in 1987. And it tells a story. It tells a real story with a plot twist, with things that don't make sense at the beginning that then reveal themselves in the end. I mean, this game is a masterpiece of 8-bit storytelling. There are just not any other games
I don't agree with you on that at all.
do what this game does.
I think the story in this
Tell me another game that tells a story as well as this.
It's the story in this is, I don't know why it would ballyhoo it. It's the old, everything's a dangling carrot. Go get this guy. Oh, he's not in this building. He's in another building.
Tell me about the epic story in Hybris. How's that go?
Hybris is a shooter boat. Listen,
okay,
you don't have to
tell me about tell me about any action game on the Amiga that tells an awesome story in 1987.
Listen, Wings. There you go. Wings tells a great story.
That's not from 1987.
Listen,
but good try.
What, I can't just pull this stuff out of my memory bank. I barely remember how to get home tonight. You want me to pull one out? The point of this is, Bo, I'm not saying it has no story, but it's a story where you rescue someone, then they say, oh, they're not here. Then you got to go here. Then you got to go there. Then you go to get the professor, and he's like, well, you got to get my daughter first. And just keep doing this over and over. And then the ultimate ending of this game, and I hate to spoil it, but I'm going to, when you find out that your contact is actually the enemy, and none of it made any sense up to that point. Why would he send you in the first place? It doesn't make a lick of sense. It was weird. Of course, all that said, it's amusing. It wasn't boring, I will say that, but it was weird. It wasn't some kind of like end-all, be-all mega plot. Now, I don't play a lot of like Final Fantasy games and stuff. People talk about how great the plots are to those, and maybe they're better than this, and maybe they're not. I don't know. But I thought the plot of this was just very NES-like. Let's just put it that way.
But again, in 1987, action games did not have plots. That's
I will say Commando,
for
for example, not a big plot. Ikari Warrior is not a huge plot.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you should put this up for an Oscar. I'm saying compared to the games in the genre released at the time, this was leagues ahead.
All that said, the plot is sort of irrelevant. I mean, it's sort of there, but I mean, the action and the way you play this game is definitely the whole different. There's nothing on the Amiga like this. There's probably nothing else on the NES like this. This is a real unique game because the strategy element is really cool. There's a lot of they let you do a lot of stuff. You can do different stuff. You can blow up walls. You can kind of go at your own pace. You can make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. There's nothing there. That's just the way it is. There's lots of
and here this is a game. This is an action game that rewards patience. So whenever you enter a room and you see guys patrolling around, your first instinct as an action game player is to go in there guns blazing where you're going to die. A lot of times the game makes you wait until something happens. Like one of the guards will say, okay, shift change, and then they'll move out, And again, this is just, it flies in the face of all of the tropes of the genre that says that everything is automatically coming to get you all the time versus, you sort of trigger the action when you feel like you're ready.
That's the fun of this game. I mean, this game is still fresh today, in my opinion. Now, that said, I've only played the PlayStation sequel to this. I played for a little while, and it's very similar. I mean, when I say that, it's in 3D or whatever. But this game still plays great. Now, I saw some people when I was reading reviews, user reviews of this. They were kind of complaining that it didn't get enough of an Amiga polish to it. And of course, the sound was upgraded. The sound effects were upgraded, and they were upgraded substantially, I might add. So I mean, that's a big change.
Yeah, I mean the music sounds like Amiga music.
And the sound
for
effects
better or
too.
worse.
Yeah.
Right. If you're looking, I think that you should play both versions because the music on the MSX version is good too, but it's the difference between 16-bit sound.
Right. The game. Let me ask you this, but would you want this game if Hoffman said screw it. Let's really give this a big upgrade visually. How would you have felt about that? I'm not sure.
Well, if you
want
look,
to do that, you know what I mean?
If you look at the sequel if you look at the sequel to Metal Gear 2, not Snake's Revenge, but the actual Metal Gear 2, that's basically what the game is. The sprites are a little bit bigger, they're a little bit more detailed.
Yeah.
To me, I don't think that would make the game any more fun, and it would make things an order of magnitude more complicated for Hoffman.
Yes,
who was
exactly.
and at the end of the day, I don't think the juice would have been worth the squeeze.
And I mean, you've well said. I like that. The truth of the matter is, here's Hoffman porting this over. It's a freebie, okay?
Right.
He puts this out here. He also does his own mod files in here. And this guy, he's a pro. When this guy cranks out a mod file, people are like, hey, holy crow. So just bare minimum, you've got a bunch of new Hoffman stuff to go into this game. On top of that, he did port the whole game, and it's a solid port. I never ran into any sort of issues with it at all. Stuff that I thought was goofy, it was exactly the same in the MSX version. And it was exactly the same in the NES version. You can go into rooms over and over and load up on ammo and stuff. I remember that from when me and Britt played it. You know, that's built into the game. So if you say to yourself, well, this thing's screwed up, it's not. That's just the way the game is. And that's part of the game. If you start monkeying with stuff like that, you're fundamentally changing the game, and you can't do that. So,
right.
I think he made the right call. There were tweaks. There were even some graphical tweaks here and there. But, I mean, going the way he did was the right move. This game, if you know exactly what you're doing, and no one does, you could run through this thing in a couple hours. But I can tell you, this is like weeks of work if you're just your average guy that's trying to work. Because, I mean, I sat
because
here
you're negotiating various challenges.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got the challenge of, how do I get past or defeat these enemies?
Yeah.
How do I negotiate this maze-like labyrinth of a fortress? Where you've got multiple locations. You got to take trucks to different locations and things like that. 3, how do I find all the items that I need and use the items in the correct way? And 4, how do I advance the plot by freeing the hostages, finding the professor, etc.? So there's a lot going on in this game.
And there are aspects of this game that are, I'd like to meet the guy that figured them out originally. I found someone that did a full playthrough on the Amiga, because I wanted to see because I heard the ending was different, and it is. And I wanted to see what it looked like and everything. And I watched this guy play, and I also had already watched someone play the MSX2 version. They're brutally similar, but by that I mean they're both ridiculously difficult. This game was a double challenge for anyone that would attempt to go beat it. I got what I thought was a pretty good amount of way in for the amount of time I had to play it. But I mean, this game is this is a real adventure here when you go on to this. And there's some real abstract areas when you're out in the desert and stuff. And a lot of tricky stuff that you wouldn't get right out of the gate. I like the save element in this. Hoffman sets you up good with save slots on this. I used this on the Mister and on my. I put it also on the Amiga package from Cloanto, Amiga Forever, and it worked fine there as well. I had no problems with this. It only requires it requires 512K chip and 512 anything else, so it'll run on practically anything. I gotta give hats off to Hoffman here on this. I didn't know of Hoffman much as a programmer. To be honest with you, I thought he was a music guy. He actually has done some stuff. He did a game called Minsky's. He did Starquake, Where Time Stood Still. Those were all games he was involved in. So he actually, he's got chops. I never knew that, to be honest with you. I looked around to see it's not like there was a ton of reviews on this, but it's funny. I thought this would be, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm going to ask you this, and you tell me if I'm an idiot or not. So we knew about this coming out. We covered it a long time ago, and it came out, and I thought, man, this is going to be the biggest deal, and it doesn't seem like it got a whole lot of press. I know, to me, did you see it? I know Amiga Bill played the beta with Hoffman there. But aside from that, I haven't seen a whole lot of people talking about it, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. Am I missing something here?
I think what it all comes down to is Amiga people associate Metal Gear with the NES, and the NES is part of the reason why their youth was destroyed, because it helped kill the Amiga.
Come on, that's
and
deep.
They want nothing. I'm dead serious as a heart attack. I guarantee you that's the reason.
Well, listen. The one thing I like about this is because you could go and emulate the MSX. All right, we did it. It worked. It works. But if you play this on the Amiga, okay, it'll work on anything. It's got new music. You've got all these different translations of the text. You've got the different outputs for frequency for the monitor. Plus, on top of everything else, it also supports the CD32 stick. which I used, and it was great, having all the buttons on there. Outstanding. It's also got keyboard support if you just want to use your one button. It's got bootable disk and WHD load support. It's got hard drive install off disk.
This thing has features to beat the band.
Right. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there's a reason to play this as opposed to trying to emulate it on the MSX2 just because of the additional features. So I guess to close out, I suggest giving this one a whirl, Boat. The people in Lemon scored this a 7.63. I was surprised. Honestly, I don't know what he could have done to do a better job porting this over.
Right.
And I think this is an A title.
Again,
today.
this is people's ignorance and their bigotry against anything that has to do with the NES and the Amiga community.
I don't know. It's hard to say. And maybe this is very different than what you would probably be popular in a European crowd.
It's good.
Well, no, now let's not be nasty. There's plenty of good things on both sides, but this is very Japanese. This is very Nintendo-y. But I really enjoyed it, Bo. And I don't know if you thought I would, because this is not normally my cup of tea, but it really is a unique game.
Anybody that understands anything about gameplay and storytelling and putting it in perspective of the time that it was released can't help but admire this game. Now, it's possible that if you just don't like stealth action, guess what? You're not going to like Metal Gear.
Yeah, now some people don't like stealth. I will say
if you look at the mechanics and you look at what it accomplished, you have to admire the effort.
And I will say this, and this is something we harp about over and over on not just the Amiga, but all the system. The interface in this, is great. Shuffling a million pieces of equipment and plus your guns, I had no problem. Now, you have to understand when to use stuff, how to use stuff. Can you use the key card while you've got on your gas mask? No, which is goofy. But, I mean, it's part of the game, and it's no big deal. And switching them out takes a second. It works good. So I like that element, too. Now, you are going to get lost. You're going to not know what to do. That happened to be a bunch of times, but that's part of the game. That's the way it is. But I enjoyed it, Boat. I'm going to give this one the thumbs up.
Yeah, me too. And if you didn't give a second thought to Metal Gear, maybe you played it on the NES and you didn't like it and you didn't realize this was a port of the MSX version. Whatever. If you haven't had a chance to play this, you really should. You really should, because it's a great port. Hoffman did a great job. And this is one of the games that, influenced countless other games that followed it. Everything from Siphon Filter to...
Let's have a look at a couple of these comparisons here just for fun, before we go out the door. So I'm going to contend with you, Bo, that this is the ultimate version of the original Final Gear, the Amiga version. This is the Amiga version against the MSX2. They're very, very similar. But one thing you get here, of course, is especially if you get CD32 joystick, you've got that great stick, plus you've got all the extra sound and all the extra tweaks that Hoffman put in with the language and stuff. Now, we talked about this versus the Nintendo version, so here's what those look like. Now, the Nintendo, like Boat said, the Nintendo was a step down from the MSX2, and so what you're getting here is just a much sharper version than what you would have gotten on the NES, plus you're getting it in the way it was originally intended to be played. So,
yes, this is the game that the way that it that it was designed, that it should have been played, and that enough is a reason for you to go with that version.
There you go. That's it. That's all I got, Boat. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Despite the wacky.
All right,
story.
man. We come to the end of our Metal Gear review, but we're just getting started because, Aaron, it's time to talk about what's been going on the Amigos Retro Gaming YouTube channel this week.
Short week, Boat, as you know. Just a couple things to go over here. Myself and the Brent were back at it on Sunday, Boat, with ARG Presents, and this week we looked at Laserdisc games. This is probably the last go around with this piece.
Brent looks to be dressed like the girl from Willy Wonka.
Well, so in case you're wondering why Brent looks like that, and I've been wondering that since he was born, but if he looks particularly goofy in this episode, he told me he was dressed as Weird Al pretending to be Lady Gaga. So I don't know what that means. Listen, I went with the tried and true hero straight from the Hacienda in California. That's Zorro, the Z-Man. I don't know what Brent is. A disgrace.
You do make a good Zorro.
Thank you, my friend.
I will give you that.
Now, all that said, Boat, I thought this was a pretty fun episode. We looked at a couple interesting Lasers games. I took a look at the Us versus Them. Same guy that designed Cubert made this, Boat. And unfortunately, this is a game that sort of fell short of what they had hoped to do with it. This was sort of the next generation of Mach 3, but they got the laser part right, but the hit detection stinks, and they used the Psygnosis Blood Money style enemy, just random shapes on the screen flying around, no dice. You know how much I hate that. Now, you got to give the Brent credit. He went way outside the box, Boat, and picked a Laserdisc cinema release called I'm Your Man. What makes this interesting, Boat, is this was released in the theaters on Laserdisc. He goes through the whole story, and it was in theaters where they had buttons set up to vote on which scenes you would see next. It's like a big video choose your own adventure.
It boggles the mind that it costs $70,000 to outfit the theater with the button gimmick.
Well, also I mean, that doesn't surprise me because you're also having to get the Laserdisc player and stuff too. And plus pay for
$70,000.
Hey, listen, I'm not surprised.
I'm not saying that it is untrue. I'm just saying it's crazy.
That's government money. So
it is.
So listen, you can play this. In fact, there's a link down below the show. You can go watch I'm Your Man right now with all the interactivity on the web. I've done it many times. This turned out to be fairly amusing, but I don't know if you tried it or not. But if you haven't,
I have not tried.
If you haven't tried it, give it a chance. When Brent said he was going to pick this, of course I poo-pooed it. But he fulfilled all the requirements of the category because it was a Laserdisc release. And
he also owns the physical DVD
he bought
release.
The DVD. So if you want to check that out, I really sincerely, I wish more people would try this because it's actually pretty wacky. And it's exactly in line. Whoa! HSI just said he saw it in the theater. Well, there's one guy. Yeah. This is right in line with what Netflix is doing right now with the Bandersnatch, with Chase for the Undertaker, wherever they Escape the Undertaker, those interactive movies. This would fit right on. You could put it right on there. So that was fun. We had a good time with that. The only other offering we've got to talk about this week, Bo, we just hot off the presses. It's Ask the Amigos, where we're confronted with many questions, Bo. This one's fresh on my mind since we just did it, and you picked, of all the questions asked, as the headliner, you picked, why did you switch from the Amiga to the PC? A very riveting question, in my opinion. It was a painful day when that happened. But we had a lot of fun with this. We went about 45 minutes. Do you remember anything in particular out of this one?
No.
Well, I thought it was fun.
Only the question that I made the thumbnail for. Once those shows are so much fun to do because I don't have to remember what goes on after we finish.
Yeah, I thought it was fun, and I enjoy it. I always enjoy those, and we're hoping sometime in the near future to do a live version of this.
Yeah,
using the Conversations from the Dark Side technology to do a live call-in version. If we can get some, of course, we'd have to get some people to actually do it, but it'd be fun. So that's pretty much all the video action we've got this week, but it's a short week. I'm sure next week we'll have a bumper crop of sweet action.
Oh, yeah. All right, Aaron. Well, before we announce what's coming up next week, I do want to thank everybody that has donated to our Extra Life campaign through Amigathon throughout this past year. Aaron, we raised $7,336 this year.
Amazing.
Through Amigathon. Of course, all of that money goes directly to Children's Miracle Network hospitals. We appreciate everybody who took part and donated. Some people very, very generous. We're so lucky to have a community that is so generous. So thank you guys. And this was just a special little cap off to the Extra Life season. And all the totals are going to roll over after today. And we'll get to work on Amigathon 2022. It'll be here before you know it, Aaron.
I just want to say, getting back to the Amigathon, listen, it's been a rough year, and when you have a year like this, charity can be difficult, right? And it's also more important than it's ever been because there were a lot of people that had it real bad, especially over the past 18 months or so. It's been real rough, and it is a badge of honor on the Amiga community, the Amigos community. The goodwill that was shown it blew me away. It restored my faith in humanity, and it did not go unnoticed. And we appreciate you guys. Every year, you guys come out and give these kids a little time and a little money, and we really appreciate it. You guys did a great job, and thank you very much on behalf of the kids and myself and Bode.
Yes, yes. Now, Aaron, next week on Amigos, we'll be back on our normal time, Friday evening and this is going to be Friday, November the 12th. We are going to be talking all about the game Street Rod, Aaron. Street Rod.
I've never played that one, Bode. That'll be interesting. Yeah.
Me neither. Yeah. This was chosen, nominated by Amigos Game Selection Committee member Paul, a.k.a. Hermsky. And we do appreciate all of the fine folks on the committee that choose the games that we play each and every week. And so, yeah, Street Rod. It's going to be a good one. Of course, we'll be back with the week's worth of Amiga news and ridiculous banter. So we hope to see you all then. Thank you for watching us and listening. We will see you next time. Until then,
adios.
Adios.